Hey guys, wintertime, summertime, regardless, the change in seasons. It changes a lot of what we do. It changes what we wear. It changes what we do on the weekends. Are we cutting grass or are we raking leaves? Watching football, watching baseball. It changes what we eat in many cases. It changes definitely what we hunt, but it also changes one very important thing, and that is what we carry and how we carry it. This is gonna be a video that I wanna show you guys on things to keep in mind when you're making that transition from one type of firearm to another, and keeping in mind the type of dress that you have accompanying that. So much happens whenever the seasons especially go from warm to cold. We've got football season, school starting, holidays. Our minds are cluttered with a lot of things that are very important, but things that definitely take us away from some of the more common things that we probably have time to focus on, or at least mental capacity to focus on during those slower times of the year whenever those crazy things aren't going on. Let's face it, holidays is enough to drive you nuts as it is. However, we have to be conscious of some of the basic fundamentals of not only why we carry, but how we carry. Case in point, typically during the summertime, many of us are going to carry, these guns obviously are clear because we are on a cold range, as we always are. Most of us will carry, in a lot of cases, especially if we're wearing summer type of clothing, we're gonna carry something pretty small. This is a 6-hour P365, this is the SAS version. And usually we'll carry it in an inside waistband type holster, such as this, with a clip on the outside to where it can slide in inside our pants. Whenever you move from that warm weather into the cool weather, it's a beautiful thing, because now in many cases you can carry a larger firearm with obviously a larger capacity magazine. You're going to be able to conceal that because your clothes aren't quite as tight fitting. In many cases we have an outer jacket on, so it's so much easier to hide that. Also, you don't always have to have your inside waistband with the clip on the outside with the firearm falling inside your pants. In some cases, you can actually go with an outside waistband, as what this one is right here. You notice the belt loop is on the inside of the holster, which is going to place this particular holster on the outside of your pants. In many cases, a sweater, a shirt like mine that's an untucked shirt, or a jacket can definitely hide this and conceal this, so you're still good to go. The things we have to worry about is how those clothes fit sometimes. Also, we have to figure out, okay, the types of clothes that we're wearing. You know, in the summertime, you're wearing more of those kind of linen-y type clothes sometimes, like the dry fit type clothing, especially if you work outside. And you know, your clothes are sometimes, they're looser fitting, but at the same time, they don't emit cotton. In other words, it's not a 50 blend or even 100% blend cotton. So you don't have a whole lot of stuff that's cluttering your gun up. In many cases, if you're gonna carry a bigger firearm, of course the size doesn't matter here, you're wearing clothes that are sometimes layers, of course, and they're warm clothes, so they're gonna have some cotton. So there's gonna be lint and things like that that are gonna build up inside the barrel, inside the action, even inside the magazine, all things that are going to affect the function of those particular firearms in the event you draw them and need to utilize them. So it's really important that we look at maintenance, and we have to up our maintenance schedule a little bit. Summertime, sometimes you're dealing with sweat and things like that. Yes, maintenance is equally important in summertime, but for different reasons. However, I see that you're gonna have more of a buildup in the wintertime when I carry, because even whenever I oil one of my firearms and I wipe all the excess oil off, that's still gonna be something there that's going to attract and retain any kind of lint, hair, or anything like that that's actually falling through my clothes. And actually, you're having kind of a choke point right there where your pants are, because you got your belt on, of course, and a lot of that stuff is going to fall right there and settle in that area. So if you have an inside waistband holster such as this, in many cases having that gun inside that garment is going to lend to having more of a buildup, and again, more of a maintenance schedule. If you're using an outside waistband, you're less likely to have that. Yeah, you still have that loose fitting garment hanging over it, but anything that drops and falls out from under that garment, because this is on the outside of your belt of your pants. So keep that in mind. The type of holster you use, if you're using an outside waistband, your maintenance schedule can probably be a little bit more relaxed, But if you're using an inside waistband holster, your maintenance schedule, you probably want to up that up a little bit, at least until you get used to how often you're going to need to be able, or at least need to be cleaning that weapon and making sure that it's functional. In many cases, I also recommend taking your ammunition out. You know, most of us that are concealed carrying are rarely, if ever, using our firearm. I highly recommend taking that ammunition out of there and making sure that you don't have buildup inside that magazine, and you get buildup around that ammo also. Let's face it, ammo is not impervious to any kind of lint and dust buildup. It's gonna have stuff that's gonna settle down in there. Even though the lint is not keeping the actual round itself from firing, as though that lint and dust travels up and goes through your magazine and into the chamber and it's fired, well, of course, it's depositing all that lint and all of that stuff, that grime that you have. It's depositing into your firearm. So if you do pull it, your firearm, and you have to utilize it in a stressful situation, well, you're going to be drawing it, even though the rest of the gun might be perfectly clean. If that magazine is jam-packed with lint and dirt, hair, all that kinds of stuff, and you start shooting it, eventually it may malfunction because now you're introducing all of these foreign things into the actual action of the firearm, and that's a big no-no. Another thing you want to do is you want to make sure that if you're transitioning from one holster to the other, even though it worked last season, however you utilized it last season, it worked perfectly on the draw and it didn't drag, or it wasn't either overly tight or overly retaining or under retaining the firearm. You want to take that thing to the range and do some draw routines on it just to be on the safe side. Let me see here. I've got, again, this is a Glock here that is not loaded. I'm going to put this is an outside waistband. I want to show you what I'm talking about. This one here is set pretty good. This is what I'm wearing right now. You'll notice that whenever I draw on it, it doesn't pull up crazy on my pants. In other words, it doesn't pull my pants up to my chest. You have to make sure that it's not going to do that. For a couple of reasons you want to be careful. Number one, all the things that these holsters are made of, they all are susceptible to the conditions that you might be in. Obviously, if it's colder, these clips will be a little bit less movable. They won't bend quite as much. The hotter they are, they'll bend. Yes, I mean, they're plastic. They're gonna bend. Same goes for everything else. If it's really, really cold, you're gonna have a whole lot less play. These holsters are known to swell when you put your firearm in there. They'll swell out, and then when you have your point where the firearm itself clicks into place, like such, it's passing that point where the holster itself is bending out ever so slightly to allow you to get past that point where you're going to get some retention, and then it snaps back into place. When you hear it snap, it's gone past that and the holster is coming back down. So when you have that, clearly in the warmer weather, that flexing is a whole lot easier and it's going to go in there a whole lot smoother. When you get into the colder temperatures, you're getting a lot less flex out of that plastic. I know it's minute and it's very, very small, but it is something. You have to be aware of that, which means maybe you need to either loosen your holster a little bit. Most of these holsters that you're gonna have are gonna have these rubber grommets in between where the two pieces of Kydex meet. There's usually Phillips heads or straight heads on there, and you can tighten that or loosen that. Definitely do that. Those are not there for looks. Those are not there just for your comfort. They're there for your holster to actually function properly with the gun whenever they meet with each other. So make sure that you either loosen that to give yourself the right amount of play where it's not hanging up, because you don't want to go to draw your weapon where when you pull up on it, it's doing this. That's too much retention. If that's the case, you need to get in there, you need to take that screw, loosen it ever so slightly and adjust it and make those adjustments until it comes sliding out of there nice and smooth, but you also still retain the proper amount of retention to where if you're running, the pistol is not jumping out of your holster. That's kind of the whole benefit of having Kydex in the first place, is that you have a bit of retention in there. So you don't want it to be so loose that it's falling out. So make sure you adjust that to where you have the best of both worlds, you have proper retention, but at the same time, you're not having to fight to get this thing out. Because if you're sitting here doing this, whenever some guy's attacking you or your family, it's not doing you any good. You want to be able to retrieve that firearm, get it on target quick and fast without having to fight to get it out. Now we could get into a whole nother issue and a whole nother video on the type of belt that you use. This is a Next belt, N-E-X-B-E-L-T. They actually make the same belt for Blade Tech. I wore the Blade Tech version of this for probably about 2 years, maybe 3 years. Love the belt. It's a great belt. It's the one that clicks in place. That way, if you overeat at Thanksgiving or Christmas, you can let your fat belly breathe a little bit by letting a couple of little clicks out of it. And you think I'm joking, but I'm dead serious about that. It's a very, very good belt, but it's also a very rigid belt. In other words, your holster's not going to hang. If you're using a leather belt without any kind of a metal core on the inside of it, and I've done this before, so I'm speaking from experience, you're going to find that over time, especially with sweat and heat of your body, that belt is eventually going to start to sag, and your holster is of course going to sag with that. I don't care if it's inside waistband or outside. If it's outside waistband, it's a whole lot worse. It's going to sag on the outside of your clothes. But I don't like the inside waistband feel of it either. So definitely you want to be cognizant of everything that you're doing. These wintertime temperatures to me are a positive. I much prefer carrying whenever it's wintertime. I still conceal carry inside waistband. I still don't move to the outside waistband. I still like it fully concealed, and whether I'm wearing a jacket or not. But at the same time, I like this time of year because it does allow me to carry a larger firearm with a much larger round count than I would with these subcompacts that are out there. Just some tips, guys, to try to keep you and your family safe during the holiday season. We cannot forget that threat always exists out there, whether or not we're joyful and having a great time with the holidays, and again, football season, the bowl games, the playoffs, all that kinds of stuff. LSU Tigers, go Tigers. It's definitely one of those kind of things that we've got to be aware every single time that threat still exists. It doesn't go away. Yeah, they're happy too, but they're happy and they're also coming after us. Those people that are in the parking lots that are looking to attack some of the weaker people or people that they can just get by. So we've got to make sure that we're staying on point. Again, there's no reason why we can't be happy and joyous during this time of year, but at the same time, we've got to not make sure that we don't let our guard down too much. One thing I want to tell you guys, I want to leave you with this. Don't ever be apologetic about being the safest and the deadliest person in the room.